A lot of the time when I have and I am selling herbaceous perennials to people, the question I get is, do I need to deadhead this? How do I deadhead this? And this is actually quite an interesting subject, and there may be a lot of plants that you may be deadheading and maybe deadheading slightly incorrectly or not in the best way for the plant itself. Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. If you enjoy our videos, please do subscribe to the channel. So deadheading is quite a thorny problem with people because they really don't know what they should be doing, because deadheading sounds like you should just be taking off the dead head. That can be the case with some plants, but in the case of other plants, you may be needing to wait or not even deadhead at all. Why? Let's have a think about why are we deadheading? If you were to leave the plant in nature, what would happen? Would it be deadheaded naturally, i.e. would it lose those dead heads? Would there be something predating on those plants? Therefore they would be getting pruned down naturally by herbivores or birds or something like that going through, you know, the horses or cattle or any of that sort of thing might be taking seed heads off or taking flower buds off, and therefore creating an environment for those plants whereby they've lost their seed, they need to reproduce flower and rebloom. And that is basically why we deadhead in the garden. You are trying to extend the flowering period of your plants. So it doesn't necessarily, I mean, in this case, it will be herbaceous plants. In the case of roses and shrubs, you know, it's quite easy. You have these wonderful blooms, they fall, then you start to get the rose hip forming. Now, if the rose hip forms completely, that sends a trigger down to the plant to say we don't need any more flower, because at the end of the day, plants are flowering to produce seed. And if they produce the seed, then they stop flowering. Not all plants do that though, so there are some things whereby they will have seed on them and they will keep on flowering. So a lot of umbelliferas, for instance, will do that. And the reason you probably deadhead an umbellifera is to stop them self-seeding all over the place. And that is another reason why, as gardeners, and this is all about horticulture, and this is where people get a little bit confused. Horticulture is the science of looking after plants or maintaining plants in the garden. And it's utilizing those things that we have learnt, such as cutting off seed heads before, or cutting off dead flowers before they produce seed, stimulates the plant to rebloom. Therefore, in a garden, we can have longer flowering season. Or, in the case of plants that freely seed around and you don't want a lot of seeding around, you are taking off the dead heads to stop that happening. You may then stop deadheading on certain plants at a certain time so that you do get a bit of seeding going on in the garden. So the reason why we deadhead varies from plant to plant. How we deadhead varies from plant to plant, and this is quite an important thing to understand. Now, there are of course plants that are sterile and they will rebloom anyway, and the reason you probably deadhead those is just because of aesthetics. And this is a lot of the reason why we do deadhead in a garden, is because we like it to look a little bit tidier. We don't like to see all of those dead heads all over the place. Now, if you garden from the point of view that you like to see dead heads, then you probably won't be doing a lot of this tidying up. You will be leaving those dead heads there because they give structure. And usually what happens is when we get towards the end of the season and we get to September, October, then deadheading stops because we're leaving that structure there so that you get the wonderful look of dew on the dead heads, or through the winter months, all those lovely frosty heads. Plus you are leaving seed heads there for the birds to eat, or even insects to have. So there are reasons why you deadhead through the summer months to get more flower, make it look a little bit tidier, but then in the autumn you leave it, and you leave it a little bit more wild. If you grow with a wild garden anyway, then you probably leave it to its own devices and you don't do a lot of deadheading. So you just have to decide, are you a really tidy gardener? Are you a gardener who doesn't have enough time to get out there and do a lot all the time, but you will do a massive deadhead at a certain time? Absolutely no problem with that. Or do you like that wild look, in which case you probably leave them all to their own devices and let them get on. And what I was saying about the fact that think about where they would be growing naturally and what would be going and nibbling on the flowers or nibbling the plants down, therefore creating the growth. That is another thing to think about as to why you deadhead and therefore get more flower coming through. Now, if you're interested in how to put your plants together and how to build a border, then please do look at the QR code on the screen. We have introduced a new border course, and this is just coming out now. So I would just like to say that at the beginning we are putting the course at a slightly lower cost, and this will only be for a short time. So if you want to get in there quickly and get the course at the lower rate, then do so. This is a special launch price to reward our long-term viewers and allow them to get on there and get the course at this lower price. As I say, it will only be there for a shortish time, but please do take a look, and there's a QR code or there is a link below. Now let's take a look at specifics, because you can do a generalization on deadheading, but certain plants will require something else. So let's start off with the dahlias, because lots of people grow dahlias and they really love them in their garden, but they do tend to go over the beautiful flowers. This one is Hare'sbrook. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? It's a short growing one, lovely dark foliage. And quite often people get confused as to whether this, which is a deadhead, or this is a bud. And you know, you just need to understand which is which. So if you were to gently just press on that, it will fold in when you do that. When you press on this, it's nice and firm. So that's one way of telling, but you don't want to bruise the buds, so don't do it too partially. If they've got a bit of dead petal hanging out of them, very easy to tell that that is the dead head. When it has gone to this stage here, this is when it's a little bit more difficult to tell whether that is a dead head or whether it's a bud. But when you look at them head on like this, the buds will always be flat at the top here. They'll be rounder. When they are a dead head, it's elongated like this, so it's twice the size of the bud. And if you look into the center, all you will see is the anthers. So that's something. Now with dahlias, it really works. Now with something which is a small dahlia and you've got good flower coming, then you would literally take this off right the way down to the next lot and you would cut it out like so. Removing that, that's now for the compost heap. However, if you have a stem where there's nothing showing, then dahlia people will tell you it's actually better to go a little bit further, especially if you've got really tall dahlias, in which case you are not just taking off the dead head, you're taking it down to the next pair of leaves. So you're taking it off with a pair of leaves going down to the next pair of leaves. So this flower is not so good, and it won't matter because I want these to go. So you would be going like so. So this has got what will become a dead head, a pair of leaves, and that has taken it down. That will then stimulate the plant and make it grow much more strongly, and you will get better flower. So be aware, sometimes if you've already got flower like that, then that is fine, but the next time you're going to be going down a little bit lower, that will send you up some really good plant material. So that is your dahlias. You either do that, a lot of people don't like it, they'll see a little bud, but actually taking it a little bit further just stops the plant from overflowering, gives it a little bit of breathing space, growing time, and off it goes again, and you will get really good flower on it. So that is the dahlias. Then you have something like the pinks, the dianthus, the little pinks, and these are great. These are quite easy to tell what you've got in the way of dead flower and everything else, because the flowers, even when they are really dead like this, they go like so. Now these are a little bit fiddly. You can wait until, you know, this second bud has actually come out into flower and take it right the way out at the bottom, but that is not really going to help you because they're going to look a little bit tatty. So you've got to look at every dead flower, and with these, if you just put your thumb and finger like that, you can just snap them off. So whenever you see a dead head, you can snap them off, and it's very easy. This one, for instance, hasn't got anything in there. They're very easy to snap. It's much easier. You don't actually require. So if there's nothing else coming, take them back down. If they are a pair, you've got a bud still to come, take it off. And that way you can tidy up what looks like a really untidy plant. These ones here, which have got very green ends like this, and they've gone from losing their petal to setting seed. You need to get rid of these ones which are setting seed, otherwise you will stop your flowering. So something like that you want to be taking right back into the plant. You want to be getting rid of them like so. And this one here, for instance, it's got a lovely flower there. It's got a flower going over and another one setting seed, so you would get rid of that one there. And this is more, most of the time you will see where they are and you will get used to this habit of doing it. The plant now looks far better. It will then throw more flower stem buds up, and that is great. And then all of this can go on your compost heap. You're going to have a really good compost. So that's the one beauty of deadheading. The other thing is you get to know your plant a little bit better. So that is something that is quite good. Then you have the salvias. Now there are all sorts of different types of salvia out there. This just happens to be an Emerosa type. This one is Rügen. Rügen is a dwarfer one. It's got quite really toothed edges to its leaves, and they tend to hold up a little bit like this, so you get a little bit of a slightly different look on these. Now there are different ways that people like to do these. You've got your flower here, it's just got a tiny little bit at the top, and then you've got new buds coming here. So some people will take this big stem and they will take it down and they will deadhead to there, therefore reducing the height, getting rid of what is not looking good. This one's not looking good at all, so you'd go back down to where there are some nice growths at the bottom there. Now if that makes the plant look untidy and you've had a hot period and it's not looking fantastically well, and you know there's a hot period coming, then quite often with something like a salvia like this, it is a good idea to actually take them a little bit lower. So although all of this is going to flower, it's a good idea to take them down a little bit further. Now you don't have to take the whole thing out. You can do one or two right the way down, two nice bushy points, and then you will be able to have later flower coming off the plant. So that is one more of a matter of pruning down to make a nice shape, and then you'll get more coming through, and when these are finished you prune those down, so you're always going to have flower on that plant. Otherwise you can do the rosy chop, which is literally take the whole lot right the way down while it's a very hot period, and then when it gets a little bit cooler you get some more rain, up it comes and it will rebloom. Totally up to you and how you want to have your garden doing. But the Emerosa types, things like Caradonna and those ones, they will all react to you taking them down a bit further. Rather than just taking the single stem and leaving a little bit, that one came off there, so rather than just taking that off and leaving those, if you take them right down like that and leave some nice growth at the bottom, you will find you'll have better flower. Okay, so there are two ways of doing that. Then we have the Achillea. This one is Achillea Moonshine, and this has done what Achilleas will do. So you've got beautiful flower up at the top here, you have got a naked base. So it has, from every single beautiful grey shoot that you had at the bottom there in the spring, it has sent up flower stems. And these flower stems are great. Now, some people prefer to leave it all and just let the flower heads go brown. Now, some of these are just starting to go brown in the centre, and that will happen, and then you get this brown head. That's fine, but it then will look a little bit untidy. So once the whole thing has stopped having, or the odd one or two of them are not looking very good. So for instance, this one which isn't looking so good, you are taking these right the way down to a lower point. So you're taking the whole thing off, and you're taking it right back. And what will happen when you take it right back like that is that you will stimulate some latent buds down here, and those will put on fresh new growth. And you will just take the whole lot off. You can dry these heads. If they've still got a little bit of yellow colour, you can take them inside. There is no point in going back on these to say there and allowing them to come out with flower, because it's never a good flower. So take them back right the way down. Achilleas are things which would be grazed naturally by the herbivores. They would take them right the way back. You'll get fresh, beautiful grey foliage, and you'll get a secondary flower if you do that with your Achilleas. And that works with all of the cut leaf Achilleas. It works with the green leafed Achilleas as well. So if they're getting a little bit straggly, take them down. They will bush up again and have a secondary flowering. So that's what you do with the Achilleas. Then we have the Geums, and I've spoken about the Geums. I haven't had time to get out and deadhead this. And even though it's got all of these deadheads, this is still sending up beautiful young flowers. So technically, I wouldn't need to do anything. So if you're one of these people who wants a slightly more wild garden, and you want this for maybe birds to have a little peck at, because there'll be something in there that's edible, or insects will quite like it, then leave it. But the main thing is, if it's got brown like that, you can pull it out. Sometimes you can with these pull them out, but they're a little bit tough. So you're basically talking about something like pulling as you would do with a piece of rhubarb. That is absolutely fine, and that's probably the best way. But if you haven't got strong enough hands to do that type of pulling out, then you can just go into the base with a pair of snips and cut them right the way back into the bottom like so. So, you know, you don't always have to have a pair of snips. In fact, it was always told by an old head gardener that if you were in control of your shrubs and everything else that was growing in the garden, all you would really need is perhaps a knife, or perhaps a good strong thumbnail, because you could go around and just take off soft tips. So as I say, you can just pull these out like so, and it works quite nicely. There we have a lovely fresh plant. These are going to come up and it's going to be looking fantastic. Doesn't that look better than all those bits out there? As I said, horticulture is the science of looking after and doing, what are we trying to say? Manipulating the plants to make them rebloom. That's what you're doing when you're deadheading. It's the manipulation of the plants to rebloom. You're not killing them, you're just taking them off. You're wanting more flower on there. They want to set seed, so therefore they grow away and look really good. A plant that a lot of people have a problem with is the Astrantias. And when do you cut them back, and how far do you cut them back? Now this is Astrantia Burgundy Manor, and it's still got lovely colour in here, but a lot of these flowers are actually now just seed heads, and they're going to go very papery, and then they're going to go brown, also putting up young fresh flowers as well. So a lot of the time, you know, you can take it right out down to the bottom, and I know people have said to me, I have problems, I've taken it out down at the bottom and it doesn't really rebloom. And all we do here on the nursery is we usually just cut straight across So that is one way of doing it. So if you've got young flower coming up and you've got ones which are slightly dead, then don't cut them right the way into the bottom if you're having problems. Cut them down to where there is a leaf like so. So you will end up with a stub, but that stub is below the foliage level. So that is one way of doing it. So you will be taking it down to a leaf. So if I show you again here, so this is a big elm, it's going over at the top. Yes, there's a bit there. So you see where there is a leaf there, you're not taking it right down to the bottom, you're just taking it down to there, and then you're leaving foliage. So that makes it neat and tidy, and you're not having a problem. So sometimes, as with this plant here, why I'm doing that is because you can see that that leaf point, it's actually sent up another flower here. So that's why you're not taking them right down into the center. So you're taking them just below the leaf level, and then you'll get more flower off those, and then you'll also get new young flowers coming up like this. So I hope that helps you with the Astrantia. Echinaceas. Now echinaceas are wonderful. You get these beautiful big flowers like this, and these were the first two flowers, and then you've got fresh coming through here, and these fresh ones you'll find will put on a lot. These older ones here are probably not doing you much favors. This one's not quite over yet, but this one, so what you would do is you would just take them right out down to the bottom. Don't just cut off the head, because if you cut off the head, if I just do that, so if it was in here and you had just cut off the head, you're left with a horrible stick which will go brown. So cut off right down into the center of the plant there, and again it will probably send up more growth here, and then you'll get to see the beauty of these without having dead heads on there. So remember, not just taking off here, go down a bit further, go down to where there is a leaf, and that is the easiest way of doing it. So that is your Echinacea. Now penstemons are slightly different, and there are different types of penstemon. So this one here is a heterophyllum type. The heterophyllum types tend to be a little bit more shrubby in their growth. This one happens to be Catherine de la Mare. This is a good old form, and they tend to have a slightly more horizontal habit depending on how they are pruned. This one hasn't, but it has had deadhead happening already, and it's been taken down to there. It has put on this growth, and now it has all of these dead heads. Now it should have been deadheaded before now, we just haven't got round to it. And basically what you need to do now, even with your normal penstemon, your deadheading is not just taking the flower off like that. That is going to do nothing, or if it does do something, you will get flower coming up like that, and basically what happens is, because it's so heavy, it flops down like so. So when you are deadheading, especially a heterophyllus type like this, which is going to get woody and make a horizontal growth there, you are taking these down a lot further. So how far do you want to go? Well, with this you want to make a neat, tidy shrub. So you are actually taking them down quite a long way to create this really good framework. And from all of these, and I'm cutting a pair of leaves, there will be latent buds there. They will come out and they will give you the lovely shrubby growth. So like this one, it's been cut back in various places, it sends off all of this beautiful shrubby growth. So that is what you are looking for. If this was your normal herbaceous type and you were trying to actually cut it back to get more flower, you would look at where the flower is, you'd ignore that first pair of leaves, and then you'd go down 2 pairs of leaves and cut off 2 pairs of leaves, and that will give you a nice growth. Then when that puts on flower, it's not going to flop over. So that would be that type, whereas with this heterophyllus type, we are literally just neatly tidying it up into that shape like so, And this one, it does send out arms sideways, so that has finished flowering. You're not going to deadhead it there. You're going to go right the way back into here because you want to create this really beautiful shrubby foliage. So from that, it'll become that, and then it will flower and you get these beautiful blue flowers. So that's the heterophyllus type. That one is Catherine de la Mare. Hukuras. Now hukuras are slightly different and there are different types. This one is Heuchera greenfinch, and this has beautiful upright green flowers like so. They've gone dead like this. Now it is a species. Sometimes you would keep those because you're wanting seed from it, but this is a pull it out. So you just get hold of it properly and you just pull like so. And that will then stimulate more flowers to come up from the base of it. So that is how you would do that. Exactly the same, and this one is showing you what is happening. This is a seedling form. This is a deadhead here. This is in flower, just about to go over, and here is a young bud. So all you would be doing is pulling these out. You're pulling it out a bit like you pull and tug rhubarb, and you pull those out like so, and that will now stimulate it. It will send up some more flower and you will get secondary flower on your Heuchera. So that is something to be aware of, and it really does work. Then the last one I've got here just to show you is the Oenothera or Gora. This one is Rosy Shimmers. Now what you need to do is the flowers, they tend to self-clean. So these are all of the dead flower heads coming off here. These have all flowered, so you haven't got any more flower in there. You've got a little bit here. And it's getting to that point where it's getting a little bit leggy. So you want to reduce it by half height. And it has masses of little shoots coming out of the side. So at a point with these, you do need to be reducing them. Sometimes you can be really mean and you can go right the way down. It depends on whether they're hidden, and you can then let them grow back up. But it is a good idea, once they've got to this point and they're not doing an awful lot, then you reduce it down by at least a half, if not 2/3, to get yourself a much better framework on this. This has still got to flower a little bit more, so we'll wait for that one. And then it has beautiful growths there. So you'd have a little bit of flower, you'd have some that will be coming back and doing something a little bit later. So there are all sorts of different ways in which you can actually do your deadheading. So it's either going right the way down to the ground like you would with the Achilia, or with the Heuchera you're pulling out. Even with the Geum you can pull out or you can cut back. So remember, you don't always need your snips for deadheading. You can do it with your fingernail, you can do it by pulling it out. Have your snips just in case, and you will get plenty of beautiful extra flower if you just carry on and do this with your plants. So you're doing it so that you get a continuity and you get more flower on your plants in your garden. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.